And a good afternoon. Welcome back to your afternoon 5-State Farm Report. Danielle Drotzman, your host here for 570 WNAX. Want to first take a moment to thank our sponsors, DeSmet Farm Mutual Insurance, Fordyce Co-op, and Total Auctions and Real Estate for bringing you the afternoon 5-State Farm Report. Well, as we continue throughout your program here today, I have with me Julie Walker. She is an SDSU Extension beef specialist, so we're excited to get her on today. So, Julie, thank you for joining us on WNAX, and how are you today?
I'm great. If you can just turn down the thermostat just a tiz, it would be nice.
Yeah, no kidding. But we'll maybe take some rain too. But yeah, the heat's good for the crops, but maybe not so much for us. And I guess that's kind of what we were going to talk about a little bit here today. We've hit mid-July, and we are certainly in the midst of some of the hottest days of the year. So I guess heat stress is top of mind right now for our livestock and all that fun jazz. So I guess any tips that come to mind for just managing heat for our cattle and our pairs on pasture, and any tips there?
Well, so the biggest thing with heat stress is there's not a lot of options out on pasture, but the really key things are ensuring that they have lots of clean water to consume. Another one is if for some reason you need to work them, do it in the early morning hours where it's cooler. And then shade. I guess if we can get them some shade, we know they enjoy staying in the shade as much as possible. The other thing would be to control flies, because what happens is if flies aren't up in the corner, we've all seen it where they bunch up in the corner, and then that heat it's not as much air movement there, so then that also adds to their heat stress.
For sure. And yeah, flies, definitely an issue on pasture. And I guess kind of depending on what management practice you use, just don't forget the reapplication, especially if you're using pour-ons. So now also might be kind of the time, like you mentioned, just to reevaluate your fly control.
Yeah, and so, I guess if we think about cattle on pasture, we probably got maybe 3 or 4 options, and one would be back rub or dust bags kind of thing. Another one would be the ear tags that have the insecticides on them. And then you can spray or do pour-ons, but that needs to be reapplied probably every 2 to 3 weeks kind of scenario. And then we can also have larvicides or oral larvicides that will attack the larvae and hopefully decrease fly population. So those are about the 4 options producers have. And people ask me, well, which one's the best? It depends on your operation and what you want to use. They all work, but they all have slightly different purposes.
Yep, for sure. And just to make sure you're using them correctly, so they work the way they're supposed to, and make sure you read those labels, right?
Yeah, labels are the key thing. And the other thing I see a lot of times is producers I'll go see them in the fall, and they've forgotten to remove the insecticide ear tags. So if you use those, you want to, at the end of the season, remove those.
Gotcha. All right. Well, as we kind of talk about just our cattle and stuff on pastures, I know we're dealing with a lot of, like I mentioned, just not a lot of rain. There's some drought here across South Dakota, and just in our Midwestern states too. So I know green grass does provide a lot of nutrients, but when it kind of comes to the drought-stressed pastures and, those drought conditions, I guess, are we supposed to be supplementing or anything specific we should make sure that our cattle are getting?
Well, the really interesting part about drought, sorry about that, is that a lot of times we might not get as much growth, but I always think about it as if the nutrients that plant's going to provide can be in a foot high or it can be in 3 inches. And so a lot of times those nutrients are condensed in that smaller growth, but here's the problem. Is there enough of that growth? And that's where we need to think about it. So I always tell producers, as long as we have available forage, enough, biomass out there, we're probably okay. But this is perfectly the ideal time to start saying, okay, what am I going to do for the fall? I might have to use my winter pastures during the summer this year, or my fall pastures in the middle of summer kind of thing. So I'm going to run short at some point. Start thinking about where I'm going to find that feed for this winter.
Gotcha. And we're kind of jumping on all around here just a little bit, but, right now, I think on our operation, we're probably going to be pulling bulls here within the next week or two. So I guess it kind of just depends on your calving schedule, but, pulling bulls, that'll be coming up here soon. So, they've been out working and, so any management or summer management right away for the bull, after this breeding season.
Well, so we always know the bulls go out hopefully in good condition. They come in pretty thin condition because they've done their job. I always think of a bull doing a marathon, right? He's out there for X amount of time, and he just has to have the endurance to get through that. He comes through kind of thin. I'd get some good feed in front of him. The other thing is, when you talk about pulling those bulls, in about 30 days is a really good idea, too, is if you want to start early preg checking to know which cows are pregnant so you can determine what you want to do with those open ones become really critical, too. So the bull signal to pulling those bulls tell you one thing: make sure that bull now has good feed in front of it. He also has substantial amount of time to regain, so it doesn't have to be like corn and soybean. It just has to be a good feed for him. And the other thing is, it also should put the signal into your mind, maybe I need to do some early pregnancy diagnosing so that I can figure out if I have shortage of feed. I'm not saying to call those opens, but when you need to know who's open so you can start making some management decisions.
Absolutely. And that's really crucial, especially with cattle prices here at the moment. Sometimes that early ultrasounding and that early preg checking can really help with herd management, like you said. So I guess with that, we're kind of coming up here on the end of our time just a little bit, but I just wanted to put out there that you guys have a Cattle HQ Live podcast that is always very informative. So kind of fill us in there a little bit.
Yeah, so every month, every third Thursday at 2 o'clock Central Time, we have a Cattle HQ Live presentation. This month is on forages, I believe, but it varies. Last month was on cybersecurity, which I think, with all the technical things, it's becoming more and more important. But every month we try and hit a topic that is key to the producers, and they can register at the SDSU extension site, and then they can join us. The other thing is, for say something happens at 2 o'clock, they can watch it later too. So those are some wonderful opportunities for them.
Absolutely. Perfect. All right. Did I miss anything, or I guess anything to wrap up on here before I let you go?
No, the key thing is if they have questions, extension, we're here to answer their questions, and we are gladly to hear our phones ring. So anytime they have a question, they're more than welcome to reach out to us.
Perfect. All right, Julie, thank you for joining us here today. It was a pleasure to have you on. So again, thank you.
Thank you.
Perfect. All right. Again, that's Julie Walker. She is an SDSU Extension beef specialist joining us here today on the afternoon 5-State Farm Report. So with that, we'll take a quick break. We'll get a look at our local weather, and then we'll round out your hour here today with some cash grains. So stay tuned.